You could do better. Come on.
Yay.
All right. Thank you, Sabrina. What a wonderful place to be. I don't think we've been in Compact before. It's quite a venue. It's good to see so many people show up. And welcome to this year's, I keep saying year's, this month's, the November Sydney CocoaHeads. This will be the last event of the month, at least the last formal one. We'll get back to that later, but we'll have a little bit of a, well, it's not a surprise, is it? Because we usually do it, but we'll have a little bit of a special event next month. I am Christian. I'll be your host for the day, as well as Sabrina, of course, on the CBA side. And Zach couldn't be here. He will. I've given him strict instructions towards the live stream as soon as he can. But well, oh well. We within Sydney CocoaHeads, we do have a code of conduct. So as usual, it boils down to 3 principles. We want people to be respectful, inclusive, and aware. And so if you see anyone that looks uncomfortable, or you've had any issues or concerns, just come to me directly. We'll sort it out. First off, we'll give a big thank you to our sponsors for this month. Obviously, Blue is our long-running, long-standing sponsor. Big thanks to them. But obviously, this month it's mostly Commonwealth Bank who provides the venue and I have to say, we've been beaten on the food and drinks department. We'll have to do better next month. But this is absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Kamek. We also have, as usual, a Slack community. So this is a joint community with for CocoaHeads, but both for Australia and New Zealand. And there's going to be challenge in there. There's going to be some general ones, but there's going to be challenge in there for all kinds of things. We also joined that Slack with the Brisbane meetup, actually. So there's going to be a lot of challenge for each topic for different cities. Go have a look. It's really, really nice. And I don't imagine anyone here is looking for a job, but if you are, there's also the job channel. Or if you're looking for someone to hire, that might be a good place to look. As usual, we are attempting to live stream this to YouTube. It's so far going well. If I can, please, obviously, if you like the content, please like and subscribe. It does help the sort of YouTube algorithm to let other people discover the content and your talks and the community in general. So it really does help a lot. And if you didn't like the event, don't bother doing the dislike. It doesn't work anyway. Next up, I would like to welcome any first-time attendees, if we have any. I think there's a couple at least. Yeah, there's a little nervous hand there. All right, welcome, welcome, welcome. I would also like to give a bit of a shout out to our friends down in ice-cold Melbourne. They seem to be going through a little bit of a third winter this week. They run a similar CocoaHeads group, and they also have monthly meetups, and they also live streaming, and I believe that's the second Thursday of the month. So that was just last week. I'm not sure if if they have one for December. You might have to check the meetup page, but all details will be there, and they're also on YouTube. In terms of conferences, I suppose our good friends Oliver, we've also been hosting before to talk about the Vision Pro. He's having like an Aussie Vision OS Day, which happens on the 6th of December here in Sydney. It is currently sold out, but there is a wait list you can join to get access, or hopefully get access. And he's quite a cool guy. He's got a lot of ideas and visions about Vision OS. Next up, we would like to hear from anyone who may be hiring or looking for work. So feel free to come up and give a little bit of a statement, if we've got anyone.
Good evening. My name is Prerna. I'm from Talent Acquisition Team at CommBank. It's a pleasure to have you guys here. I just want to call out that we will be hiring for iOS as well as Android engineers. And if you want to register early bird entries, please make sure you connect with me on LinkedIn. If there is anything I could help you provide with advice or type of projects and how cool it is to work with CommBank, I'm more than happy to have a chat after as well. But otherwise, connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you. Coming back to the Slack, we do have the job channel in there, so feel free to write a little post there. And getting back, looking ahead into next month, obviously we will be having an event, an end of year quiz at our usual offices at Billow on the 12th of December. So there'll be no formal talks. It'll be a fun event, social event, as we used to. And we have the pleasure of having Craig, who's in the front row here, of course. He's going to be our little quiz master for the evening, and it usually goes quite well.
Thank you.
Sarcasm. That's okay.
Your mileage may vary.
Yeah. January, as usual, we are taking that month off because we find a lot of people are away on holiday or have to sort of keep recharging after the break. So we'll have that off, and we will be returning with our regular program from February. And I should note as well that if you are thinking about having wanting to do a talk, we are obviously looking at all times. There's probably a slide for that too. But especially for February, if you know already now you might be working on something, please reach out to us. The sooner the better. And also, I guess for February or for next month, please remember to use Meetup to RSVP, especially days like today where we've got actual catering. It really helps us figure out how much food do we need, how many chairs, just figure out how to sort of arrange the event. Plus, the more we get, the better events we can make. So please use that feature. All right, let's get to it. Tonight's schedule, we'll be looking to start off with a little bit of a lightning talk from Carl. He's going to talk about what we have learned on writing an Xcode project generator. Then we're going to follow that up with a talk about location live updates from Natalia. Natalia, is that right? Okay, good. And lastly, we'll have Rick talk about design systems. So without any further words from me, let's welcome Carl.
Cool. Thank you, everybody. So I'm Carl. I work with the build tooling and foundation team inside CommBank. This is probably one of the rare glimpses you get into some of the tooling and things we do inside of CommBank. I know that we're not very good at times about publicizing it, so I thought it might be interesting for everybody to get to see a bit of how that works. 2019, I think it was. So we had some, sorry, I should have gone forward in the slides. That's a little bit cut off. Okay. I think all of them are a little bit cut off. That's cool. We hit a point when our Xcode project is growing. We had CocoaPods. It started to spread out across repos with dependencies. You split things up, you do all the right modularization stuff, and then you end up with quite a spider web. Whenever you need to update something, it needs to go into one repo, others depend on that. You need to get everything then updated back into your main repo. CocoaPods was starting to take longer and longer to generate the projects. I think it was getting up to about 10 minutes. And it was just a nightmare. And we were managing with it, but we knew that we could do something better. We also started to have risk with production incidents where somebody's put an asset in the test app but have forgotten to tick the box for the prod app. And these are things that are symptomatic of having such a large Xcode project when everybody's trying to manually resolve conflicts in XML. It was nobody's fault. It's just part of the nature of the project. Like all good nerds, I opened up a Swift file, and the first thing I wanted to do was give it a cool name so that everybody would think that I was good at what I was doing. And hacking over at Christmas, looked at some of the other projects around to generate an Xcode project. And the other things that were around at the time still took about 10 minutes to generate a project. And our current state with the repo, we've got everything merged back into a main repo. We've got 1.3 million lines of Swift, a little under 100,000 Objective-C and storyboards and zibs. Kotlin, 1.2 million, Java, a bit under 200,000. And then the other is mock files, JSON, JavaScript for your mock servers, all that sort of stuff. Just to give you an idea of some of the scale of the repo. We've got a mix of, well, one of the things we noticed when we built the project generator is the number of targets we had in the repo started to explode. So what you don't see on the edge of that slide is iOS app targets. We've got about 270, and these are individual frameworks inside of the Xcode project. And the test targets is around 400 because you've got a mix of unit tests, snapshot tests, UI tests, test harnesses, to give a total of about 700 frameworks that are generated out into the project. And you might look at things like Buck, Xcode Gen, Tourist, and think about how much of a nightmare it would be to write 700 framework definitions. So some of the good things out of building our own Xcode project generator: no more conflicts. The day the Xcode project was removed from the repo, it was like a sigh of relief. Not because the Xcode project was bad. I think I have to say that because of some of the Apple people in the crowd, but it was just causing unnecessary angst the way it was used, just because of the scale of the project. A really nice thing was being able to have very fine-grained control over making sure everything was a static library, which fixed some of the performance issues of launch, and including code generation in that, which meant that eventually we could remove all of the generated code from the repo. Everything gets generated at the time the Xcode project's built. But some of the big things were things like automatic dependency resolution, where every time we run it, it scans all of those lines of code. It scans every single file in the iOS project to map out the import statements and automatically generate the dependency tree. So you don't have to tell it what your framework depends on. And knowing how that tree looks and how we generate it means that if you remove something from the dependency tree, it disappears out of the project automatically. So for mini apps, it means that because we know what, for example, an accounts framework depends on, if we've got a mini app that just imports the accounts framework, you can tell it to generate a project for that app, and it generates a very small project with just your app with your test harness, the framework you're working on, and the tests associated with it. Pre-building and caching is actually fairly new. So using XC frameworks to pre-build the binaries that the app uses so that the source files are not in the Xcode project anymore, because with so many files, it does slow down some of the file searches, and you don't really care about some of the things lower down. You just care about the framework you're working on. Everything else can be pre-compiled, and using things like the binary, the hashes of the source code that it's come from and its dependencies in the environment means that you can do a clean in Xcode without losing all of that pre-built files. And it's knocked clean build times down using the cache from 10 minutes down to about 5 minutes. And that's for building everything inside of the app. The automatic resource mapping was something we had to do because of the static libraries. They can't have resources attached to them because they're just a static binary. So it automatically maps all of that back to both executable targets like apps, but also test targets where sometimes things trip you up and you don't expect them needing to be linked in. Some of the issues that we've run into though, all of those source files were still in one Xcode project. So being able to generate mini apps was a major benefit. And the Xcode experience could be improved for large projects. We've slowly worked around that. It's not necessarily the issue of the project, it's the scale that we're trying to throw inside of one project. The ugly is the things that slow down the machine. Actually, there was the slide, okay. 2 minutes to generate the project. And if we go to the ugly, if you've got security software on a machine that is managed by a corporate environment in an enterprise, it can slow things down to the point where your 2 minutes to generate a project with some software on there then blows out to 6 minutes if that software is left unchecked. Sonoma also threw a really big spanner in the works because of changes to how the security software needed to interact with monitoring files that are opened and closed. So it didn't used to take 2 minutes to build a project. It used to take under 30 seconds. And it was interesting seeing how people's behaviors changed as it got slower. People were actually better at making sure they ran the project generation because they didn't want to be caught later on and have to be slowed down to go back. The lessons though, the Xcode project format is quite stable. It does get things added to it. It's quite predictable once you get used to it. It's not too bad to add in new capabilities like supporting Swift Package Manager and bringing packages in, adding support for XC frameworks, new types of files. Those things have been actually quite straightforward to add in because of the format of the project. There are things though that do make the project more complicated and especially slow. So having build settings inside of the Xcode project, if you want to go and play with those, it's a lot faster to move those out into the XC config files. That becomes a bit more, you have to have a much lower level understanding of how the build system works to manage those, but it's very hard to manage a large project without keeping those separate. And then finally, the more code you write, the more code you have to maintain. You're always going to be putting less logging in than you need. It's always better to have more than you need so that it's there when you need it. But it also, if you go overkill, you've got more code to maintain. Be careful with dependencies. If you add dependencies, it's going to take a long time to get rid of them. It's not bad having dependencies. It's having dependencies you feel like you're stuck with that becomes a problem over time. And when you get this out into the hands of people, talk to them, see how they're going with it. Use that as feedback to inform your direction. Don't feel like you have to let the people that use it control where it goes. They don't always see, but they're giving you feedback based on the problems they have directly there in front of them, not necessarily thinking about the bigger picture of what they could solve if they were working on the tool. But that feedback is invaluable. Without that, you're not going to know if you're doing the right thing. And that's basically it. Thank you.
Do we have any questions at all, if you're taking? What?
Just a very quick question is timescale. Roughly how long from realizing that this was a requirement to do to having first round MVP versus whatever it is now to get this new tooling system in place? Ballpark.
One Christmas break. It took about 2 weeks before we had the project, the tool that would remove CocoaPods completely and the project.
How much sleep did you have?
I had a lot more caffeine than I had sleep. It was, we had a good idea of what the problem was. It was just it was important that it was over Christmas break because you needed isolation away from everybody to be able to get things done. It is something you have to concentrate on for a very long period of time, unbroken, in order to be able to get it done. You're very good at reading between the lines.
Anyone else? No? All right. Thank you very much. So next we'll get our talk by Natalia, and we'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, can you hear me right now? Yep, all good. Um, so it's very nice pleasure to be here today. And today topic is about location update and live update as well. So just to introduce myself and know you a little bit more probably. So I'm starting a brief about myself. So back to my experience, I started software development as a Mac developer and gradually moved to mobile. Is it anybody here who developed for Mac as well? Oh, yeah, couple. And iOS developers here? Oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah, who need Mac now? You cannot take selfie with Mac. Yeah, so I'm originally from Ukraine, and several years ago I moved to Australia, and yeah, and actually change like snow, Christmas weather to beautiful beaches here, like all the year. You can walk, hike, like driving, like relaxing. Yeah, so you can believe me, driving here, it's much more relaxing in Australia. So yeah, freedom of movement in Australia, just what we can do, yeah, with our phones, devices. So yeah, moving to location update. Yeah, so currently I'm working at Blue Dot company, and we are developing location and geofencing SDK. So it's SDK that can help our clients just use a location update, for example, delivery, pickup, curb, pickup orders, and yeah, with good battery efficiency. Yeah. Usually location update is quite popular in applications. So it's almost everywhere. It's in maps, fitness application, health, kids tracking, hopefully not adult tracking. Yeah, so business, project management, travel, marketing, so delivery, drive-through, curbside pickup as well. So location update, location information that we can get from our devices, it can be a one-time request or a continuous location update. For example, if you're running or something like fitness applications, a map, yeah. Or and also it could be just if you need on foreground or continuously on background as well. So I'm going to talk about continuous location update. And currently we have two approaches. The first one, classic, with start updating location. And the second one, it's quite new. So it's a new streamlined location update. And I would say it's live update. So it appeared in last year on WWDC 2023, and it available starting from iOS 17. So one question to you, if anybody use location update at all in your apps? A little bit, all right. Yeah, and yeah, I wouldn't ask then probably who knew about new framework, knew this API with a live update. Yeah, yeah. You have you moved? Yeah, have you moved to live update yet or not? No. Not yet. Yeah. So. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay. That's interesting. It's like so. If you're starting writing new application, or for example, you have currently location update, so you could have a question: which one I need? Because the first one, the classic one, I would say, they Apple didn't deprecate the classic one, and they added a new one, live update. So which one we need? Yeah, and if, for example, I use old one, so do I need to upgrade my application to new live update? Yeah, so this is the question. And so before you go implementing a new one, I would consider several points. The first one, iOS version actually, which your application supports, because live update is supported starting from iOS 17, and while classic one is supported on previous and not deprecated on iOS 18 at least. So, and working good, like um, so. Probably if you need your application need to support like old version of iOS, and you don't like to like duplicate functionality, so maybe you can stay with old classic approach. The second one, live update is supported by Swift only. They finally are starting deprecated Objective-C. So yeah, it's something happening in Apple. Yeah. So the third point is accuracy. So I found that live update can give us more accuracy, and this new feature, new API, it supports different configuration when you set up this, and actually this configuration, they don't give you like more often accuracy, more often location update, but it gives you some kind of accuracy via configuration. So for example, if you set up with automated configuration, so API just recognize and align your coordinates with, like suppose that you are on automated roads, and just figure out it's more precisely you are on the road. And with battery drainage. So battery drainage is better on new live update. And because the new live update supports like suspended mode and stationary detection. And so if your application running on a long period of time, or for example, people just go to like to the bed with some kind of, for example, health application or something, or just go to the office and just put your iPhone on the desk. So it's probably worth to move to live update to save some battery. And the next one, recovery from termination. So if I will tell about this a little bit later, but it's very cool feature. Yeah. So the concern of this, the new API is quite very fresh, and documentation still not always full in Apple, and sometimes not valid. But they are working on this, and I can see like every week they improving. I also found a couple of bugs on background, couple of crashes, and on termination. But overall, on foreground, yeah, and background overall, if it's going pretty smoothly. Yeah, so a little bit probably I feel, yeah, not many people use location update, so you can think about this. So if you're interested, so I would talk briefly about classic option, the first. So it's implemented via old classic delegates pattern. So you to set up API, you need to use CL location manager and run start updating location. And in this case, this manager will push location update objects to delegate that name did update location. And if you need or if you failed, if it failed with error, so it go to another delegate. I did fail with error. It's very briefly about this. So there is other things that we need to know to configure the project. So we need to add some keys to info please to set up it, include background capabilities location update. Also, don't forget about location permission, and again start with location update and get did update location into delegate. So background. Background is different story. So if you need to update a location update on background, when the application in background, you have to set up a couple of things. So the first one, allow background location update. It's a property of, and you can like Boolean, true or false. Yeah. And also you have to be careful with location authorization because it can be quite confusing. So if you set up this allow background location update, it sometimes it works, sometimes not. I would say it works always, but it could be confusing because it works well when the user has when in use location authorization. So, but if it's always location authorization, the system will ignore this Boolean flag allow background location update and will push location updates anyway. And in this case, and you cannot like disable actually location update. So on background, it will drain your battery. So yeah, it's probably not very, that's why it's probably not great solution for long run applications. So I can give you very quick demo on Xcode and simulator how it works. So yeah, as I said, you need to set up some keys in info list. So background modes location update, and here's this starting updating location to start it, and couple of delegates, so you can get location coordinates. So I will run simulator. And we'll see how it's going on. Yeah, yeah. I will choose while using location permission right now, and we start location update. So on simulator, actually, it works like it's city run. That's why it's pretty actual good simulation. So somebody running, and you can see this location, it working on foreground. But if you go to background, it will stop. It should stop in several seconds. Yeah, it's actually stopped. Yeah, and failed with error, for example. And if you include a background activity flag, so currently it's on foreground, so it's good. And we go to background, and it continues working with no problem. Yeah, and just be careful again if we change this always permission. So anyway, it will give you this background activity if you don't even need it. Yeah, so this is the first example. So currently we can go back to our presentation. Not start from beginning, sorry. Yep, yep. So that was the classic one with delegates, and the new one, as I said, it's a new API, new class, CL location update. It's supported starting from iOS 17, and it's supported by Swift only, no Objective-C. So a new location update has 4 states. The first one, foreground. The second one, background. Third one, suspended. And finally, terminated. So I shown how works this classic one. It's pretty big, pretty lots of configuration, and sometimes it could be confusing. And you can see right now how it looks a new one, location update. So it's actually one or couple of strings code in the code. So it's location update live updates, and in like try await loop, it's actually like a stream. So you can get all location updates. You don't need any like info list configuration. You don't need actually even authorization. So it works like magic, but with some probably hidden things. Yeah. So This is so you can set up this configuration as I mentioned before. So you have plenty of different configuration like automotive fitness airborne that will align you with some coordinates. Yep. So with foreground, it works very, very well, and no need any junior can do this in a couple of lines of the code. And with background, you have to couple of other lines in the code, but it will work very well as well. So you need to set up background modes capability, location update, and also add some CL background activity session just to create it. So I will go to Xcode again. Yep, yep. So it's working pretty good. So actually the code looks like this one. So it's live update with configuration, and this is the stream with that can get coordinates. And if you need some background activity, you just create activity session, background activity session. If you don't need it, you just invalidate, and that's it. So this is the similar example that works with different API. So if we go to background, it stopped in several seconds. Yep, it stopped. And if you switch on background activity, so it's going well. Yep. All right, so this is about background activity. And I would go to another. I don't know how to do it. Okay. So, it's quite clear with background. So the location update also have suspended state. It's when the system can switch the app, whereas when there are no location updates, and the application can stay in suspended mode for hours. And if a person, for example, sleep and the device wakes up quite regularly, probably every 4 or 5 hours, as I can understand, and it just checking again if the location doesn't change, and can go to sleep like suspended mode again and save battery. No location update at all. So the terminated state, it can happen when the system closed up because of, for example, application crash or just lack of resources or something happening. and even if a user kills the application, and in this case, the application can go to termination mode, and monitoring location update still continue monitoring location update. And we need to set up the application to have this feature, but it's very, very cool. Sometimes if you need really this functionality. So the recovering from termination, it's happening by the system, but I would like to give you some example, some understanding what is happening, how it looks like. So, for example, you use health application or fitness application, and you're running, and you just wanted to you just wanted to kill the application and actually the system doesn't kill it, and if the application is configured in special way, this application will recover, relaunch again, and will continue use your coordinates. But you cannot see it in on the ground in application cards, so you cannot just even understand what is happening. But it's a feature; it's not a bug. Yeah. So sometimes it's very, very useful feature, but yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So this special mode when the application do recovering from termination, it works for always authorization only. So if you don't like, the application will spy for you. So don't put always authorization for application and just use when in use authorization. So it will save your battery, for example, or your privacy. So this when application in recovery mode, so it still get location update every 1 second, and accuracy around 5 meters. So it's pretty like good accuracy, and battery drainage as well can be slowed down. Drainage, yeah. So the system not always recover application from termination, and it depends on resources and other stuff. Yep. So I would finish with presentation. Actually, there is also a couple of very interesting things around location authorization, a new API that appears on iOS 18. And but I would like to say that you don't need to use it every time, but in very special cases. So actually, when you implement this live update, you can use this new location authorization with CL service session, or explicitly can use it, or if you don't use it, the system will use it implicitly. It's working well, but how it's devil in details. So just if you wanted to use this, and sometimes you really need to use it, for example, to support recovery from termination, you have to explicitly use this CL service session new authorization API. Or for example, if you wanted to request full accuracy and always authorization, you have to use it on iOS 18. And actually, you don't need to use it on iOS 17 because it's not supported. But system somehow implicitly run it. And actually, for example, you don't need to request localization to see this location dialog about permissions, but the system will show it anyway, just automatically. So in summary, Live Update is quite modern, try, await, stream style, and more efficient in with battery drainage, but it could be a little bit confusing because it works differently on iOS 17 and iOS 18 and its effect. And just if you wanted to use it, I would recommend to go to some Apple examples, doing some prototypes and some probably developer forums, just to understand how it works, and yeah, and enjoy the privacy. Yeah. So thank you very much, and that's it from me. And yeah, if you have any question, let me know.
A couple of, well, several things. We've done location apps before. So in the old APIs, you could specify in the configuration how fine a granularity you wanted. So you could go, I only want moderate, and it would often give you better. Is that implicitly done in you saying, I want road style navigation versus I'm in a plane versus I'm running? Second bit is, you said like 5 meter accuracy. I presume that's just got to be luck of the draw if you're surrounded by buildings. And I'm definitely curious about the privacy controls. It seems to have a lot, it may be done more simply, but it looks to have a lot less granularity to ensure that the user actually is controlling the privacy part. So are they reasonable questions or comments?
Yeah, yeah. So the new API gives more, this more accuracy, a little like, and I think the same frequency. So both of them, and classic and new one, give location update every 1 second. But with this configuration things, the new API more accurate. What I can say more, so it's not always 5 meters. It depends on the speed. On automotive roads, it could be more a little bit, but it depends again on the system, because it's not something we cannot set up accuracy in location updates. We just request accuracy, but the system can give you this accuracy or not. So it depends on, it's some kind of black box sometimes, and Apple, you need to ask Apple sometimes what is going on, and it's like expected result or it's a bug. Yeah. So that's why they actually has a very good forum and very quick answers, detailed. So I recommend, if you have any question, or to go to the original engineers. Sorry. Yeah.
One sec.
Hi there. Just a bit of a follow-up to the previous question about privacy. Do you have any thoughts about whether the new system is good for people's privacy, for the users' privacy, or is it potentially allowing apps to access people's location in the foreground without their consent?
Yeah. So Apple said that you don't need to use always. So if you are a user, so it's not necessary to use always authorization as much as possible. So you don't need it. But it depends on feature. For example, if you would like to have this, I don't know, maybe I would say that it would be nice if developers can give more information for user why they need when in use or always authorization for users. So it wouldn't be the user wouldn't be scary of give always authorization actually. It's very, very difficult question. So sometimes we need to some kind of feature, for example, for this recovery from termination, and it's useful. For example, for I don't know if if a user trust application developer, and it really need, for example, for health monitoring. If you sleep and it go to background, but you need to, for example, I don't know, check some kind of snoring or sleepwalking, some kind of. So you have to trust. In this case, you have to trust, and you have to give always authorization. But otherwise, I would set up give only when in use authorization, and it would be fine in most cases. Have I answered your question?
Hi, you mentioned it's a feature, not a bug, for the resumption after termination, that it like keeps getting your location. But I just wanted to clarify: is that next time you open the app, or if you're closing apps, are they still tracking your location?
Yeah. So if you this feature, this is a feature. It's not a bug, but this feature works for always authorization only. So if you worry about your privacy, just because if you, as I said, if you kill the app and location update was set up for tracking location update on the ground, the application, the system will track you. Like the application will run in again, relaunch on the ground, and you cannot see it, and you cannot kill it actually. So in this case, you just go to location location settings, and just give no permission or when in use permission. In this case, you will be safe.
A couple of more questions. I presume it's in the doc somewhere, but though that always permission, is it still shown the same way in settings, regardless of the fact the APIs for getting the data is different?
Yeah.
And in the old data, the records you got in the delegate callbacks usually included an accuracy and a thing about staleness. So you could get told, oh, here's a delegate callback, but by the way, the position data is stale. And it was up to you to discard those. Is that equivalent in the new stuff, or that just doesn't occur anymore?
Yeah, so actually it's a mix of, so the second question about delegates. So currently with new API, they didn't deprecate the old one. So try to not mix delegate with this one, of course, but they still have the main class CL location manager. That's still a main class for location update. And with this class, you can set up this accuracy and all other stuff. So it's like some kind of combination sometimes. Sorry, the first question was
The permissions for the new APIs,
New-
they show in
yeah,
settings the same
yeah.
way.
So actually on in settings up, they looks the same. So it doesn't matter if you use which location update you use, the same permission looks like. But what Apple said about new location update, that they work differently with permissions. So you can like set up a location permission. It's actually the sessions, and in this classic approach, it was like one location permission, application permission, and now it's like different layers for different features that you can switch on and then invalidate, switch off. I still going to play with this just to understand how it works, because it's like sometimes it's not 100% clear and they change, and there is new system updates right now. So they still working on this. I feel it. Yeah, but it will work differently in some kind of in black box, but you cannot see it on settings.
All right. I think we had one last question. Did you? No? All right. Any last question? No? All right. Let's give a big thanks to Talia.
Thank you very much.
And with that, we're going to do a quick, well, a bit of an extended break, probably about 15 minutes or so. There'll be some extra food and drinks out in the lobby area, and we'll return in 15 minutes or so. All right. Welcome back from the break. Everyone grab a seat. We'll get back into it. Thank you very much. We're gonna move on to our last speaker of the night, and that's Rick, who's gonna talk to us about design systems. Give him a big hand.
Thanks, Susan. Good evening. I hope everyone's feeling relatively comfortable towards the end of Thursday. If you're not, the good news is that the train strike has been postponed. So we have a high confidence that everyone can get home in time after my talk. A little bit about myself. I'm Rick. Nice to meet you. I live in Melbourne. In case you wonder why I came here doing a talk in Sydney, CocoaHeads.
4 years old.
Yes, because no, the 4 years old was the reason I returned to Melbourne. For like a good 4 years of my life, I lived in and worked in Sydney. I really had a good time until the little one, which is now 4 years old, was born. And that's when I realized that the happy life was over. Time to return to the cold and familiar city. But Sydney remains a special city to me, so I'm happy to be standing here talking to everyone. I love coffee, obviously. My personality is ISFP, if anyone is into the MBTI personality thing. It stands for introverted, observant, feeling, and perspecting. Interestingly, one of the weaknesses of this type of personality is technical problem solving. Yet, I'm working as a software engineer at Combank, so nothing is impossible. I would like to start my talk with an ancient story from Genesis, which is Tower of Babel. Some may know it as Tower of Babylon. If you don't know about stories, it's basically about a group of people who were once united and they spoke the same language. They decided to build a city with a tower so high that reaches the heaven. They eventually failed because somehow they stopped speaking the same language. They couldn't understand each other, couldn't cooperate, and this project basically turned out a failure. So do a bit of a reverse thinking that how. Firstly, the Tower of Babel to me so kind of resemble the success or failure of digital products nowadays. If we do a bit of reverse thinking, how could we make Tower of Babel a success? A few things stand out to me. Firstly, probably is to acknowledge our engineering and architectural limits of the current time. The product we're building should have a clear and realistic purpose, which is rather than making our name, it should be serving the civilians, serving the users or customers. And lastly, very importantly, the team who's working on the product should unite by embracing diversity, should speak the same language. Which brings to my actual topic of the day, which is design system. Quoting a sentence in the Tower of Babel, to me, design system looks like design is like the bricks and mortar for the UI of our digital products. A design system typically consists of a set of standards and guidelines that the team members, engineers follows. A set of predefined colors, font, and measurements, which are called design tokens nowadays, and a library of reusable components and patterns, which are the actual tangible things that our engineers use basically to build their application or UI. So here's a bit of overview of the design system that we use at CommBank. Our legacy design system was built on UIKit, which was because back then UIKit was that UI framework for iOS app development. So mostly all our legacy features on UIKit using these UI framework, using this legacy design system. Sometime last year that the team decided that Swift UI was mature, was at a point, maturity point that it makes sense for us to stop moving our UIs, moving our UIs to Swift UI, start developing using this relatively newer UI framework. So this also had us kick off a new design, a successor of the previous design system built purely with Swift UI, and basically it is targeting the features, all the new features in CommBank app that is built in Swift UI. So if we look into the design system for relatively successful digital product like apology, I'm a bit under the weather. So yeah, I'm gonna clear my throat from time to time. Hope you don't mind. They should be relatively straightforward to use. They should be flexible. Using them should feel flexible, but it still conform to the set guidelines. Very importantly, that it should be well documented and have good support from the supporting team. But what does this mean? In the rest of my talk, I am going to share our learnings from building design systems and hope these scenarios and examples will help clarify the essence of design system and what a design system tries to achieve. I guess the very first thing is to choose the right platform, because the platform you build your design system on will greatly influence your design decisions. Is our existing product built with native framework, or is our product built with cross-platform technologies like React Native? It makes sense because the design system is going to be used by your product. It actually makes sense for your design system to be built with the same UI framework that your product is using. Interface guidelines of different platforms greatly influence our design decisions. And when it comes to accessibility support, which is dynamic type, voiceover, voice control, and dark mode support, native UI framework is just kind of the go-to. Another thing is about design token. Here I've touched code snippet of creating a view two different ways. The first one using raw values and second one using design tokens. And from the examples, you may be able to see that one of them is easier to read, and the token that's used kind of tells you the purpose of what these values are about. So one thing we've learned from building design system is that, if possible, set up your design tokens early, because it is such a fundamental element for your design system. It's your color, your font, and your measurements. Basically, all your reusable UI components are going to build on top of this. The engineers on different product team are going to be using your design token to build their feature as well. So getting it set up early it will save us a lot of effort later on. Going with material 3 definition from Google, basically there are like kind of 3 layers of design tokens. Global token stands for the raw values. Basically, you're just like defining raw values with a name. For example, measurement 8 stands for 8 points, measurement 10 stands for 10 points. Semantics token is that you start to give that measurement a meaning. For example, container padding horizontal, or text size or font size title. So you assign a meaning to the measurement, to the colors, and that will also help engineers and designers in selecting them to build their UI. One thing we noticed while setting up the token is that engineers like t-shirt sizing. We like text size large, text size extra large, extra large, but designers hate them. They cannot design with t-shirt sizing. They need actual measurements. And and sometimes we do need to make compromises. That middle ground sometimes is a good ground, because a middle ground is basically a place that multiple disciplines, people from different backgrounds agree upon. And starting with a middle ground is kind of like agreeing to speak on a common, different background people agree to speak a common language so they can work with each other. An advice for building a design system, iOS design system, is that when possible, try to build it like a native API. Here I have an example of 3 styles of button. We have, say you're in your library, you have a primary button, secondary button, and tertiary button. How are we going to build it? We can build it like the code example on top, where we can define, basically we can define 3 different SwiftUI structs, being primary, secondary, or tertiary button, or we can utilize the button style view modifier and basically implement our button style, custom style. The example on the button has the advantage that firstly, to our user, using it feels like using SwiftUI button. We're just providing a new style to it. Secondly, it also allows us to utilize flexible syntax in SwiftUI button. There are like, as far as I know, like 3-4 different ways to initialize a button. Using SwiftUI's button API means that our the users are not restricted to a particular specific styles of initializing the UI elements. Another example is considering these cards that present information to our customer. It contains the image, the headings, descriptions, and buttons. We could build it with like as a card struct with a style parameter, with a style parameter which you can pass in to configure the style small car or big card. But doing the approach on top means that if you are putting a car in a collection view, such as a list view or a carousel, you would have to configure this. You have to configure this for every card. If we utilize the SwiftUI environment variables and use SwiftUI environment variables and define the card style, just like how SwiftUI does for their buttons, then the advantage is that firstly, it looks more natural, because like you know that when you are setting the larger style, we know that we are basically configuring its appearance as outline. Secondly, this allows us to actually put all the cards in, say, a list struct, and then just use this card style modifier at the end to configure the style for all the cards inside. That's another advantage of building your UI like a native API. Backward compatibility. If you are working on an app that's still supporting iOS 15, and you need to build a view that scrolls only when the content overflows, you probably have done something similar to this. So if available, if iOS 16.4 is available, happy life. We use this scroll bounce behavior view modifier that basically takes care of everything for us. It doesn't scroll when the content doesn't overflow, and it scrolls when the content is too much. But elsewhere on our own, implementing our custom scroll bounce behavior this is an unavoidable scenarios working in iOS app because operating system moves on, and then we are left. I shouldn't say we're left behind, but operating system move on, but we can't leave our customer behind. We should still support the OS version that's available that our customers are still using. So when building a design system, we need to think about backward compatibility. A rule of thumb is that we should support our target product's minimum OS version because that's what our customer is on. And we want to deprecate, and then we deprecate when minimum supported version moves on. Using annotations such as these available annotations basically helps reminding us when life gets busy, reminding us that hey, like 2 years ago you built these view modifiers that to support iOS 15. Time to remove it, time to move on. I wish to use this example to discuss finding the balance between reachability and flexibility in the UI component that we build. Suppose we are building a template that is showing an image, an impression image, and a heading text and body text. We can build it with strict type that this template takes string, heading text, takes images, strictly images, and takes strings. Easy. But what if we want to change the image after the car is rendered? We could use binding image. What if the image is asynchronously loaded? That this template will be, in some use cases, the template will be rendered first, and then while the image was still loading, the API is still going. How do we support that? We can choose to then define our impression view and the body view as generics. So then we can start to treat. Should we start to treat our template as just like a template of different slots? And the slots basically are generic 3UI view types. Then we expose basically expose in our initializer, taking view builders in our initializer. The usage syntax will be something like this. The impression no longer takes the image type, where the body, even the body is just a slot for you to create your own view. Does anyone see a disadvantage of this approach? So free, maybe too free. By doing so, that our consumers of the design system, they can actually, because view builder is essentially allows you to put anything, any Swift UI view inside. So by doing so, we are essentially giving up all the controls on the outline, on the layout of the view, the controls on border radius, and we're giving the power to the user of our design system. But they can choose to put a list in our impression view. They can put a button in, they can insert a button into the button content there. So where do we find the balance? What we learned is that usually sometimes we need to do both actually. So in many cases, we actually, for a component that we build, we have an initializer that takes strict type. For customers, for users who doesn't need much customizability, but they just want to put the data in, put the image in, and get the view. And for customers who needs more customizability, they can choose to use the view builders. Our advice is that if you expose view builders, to allow your user to customize what's in your template, you should write it in the guidelines and write encode warnings, basically telling encode warnings saying that by using the view builder, you are responsible. Basically, you are responsible for the layouts and the layouts and basically anything. Oh, ideally, you can provide a sub template for a customer to use. They can choose your sub template and then put the template into the slots. That also gives us some assurance on the UI. The next example is, I hope it illustrates how we try to find a balance between the view builder approach and the strict type approach that I mentioned in the previous scenario. Suppose we're building a template that shows a title text, a media view, and a list of text items. We can build our template, build our template using view builder for the media, because the previous example kind of already showed that it's actually pretty convenient to have a to expose a view builder, to use a view builder to construct your media view. So you can support image, you can support animations, or you can even support programmatically drawn illustrations. We can define our body, the body as an array of list items. And the usage syntax would be something like this. You create a you create a my list, initialize it with title string, make a view in the view builder for media, and then you pre-construct your list item as an array and pass it into the body. But this does require, but this does mean that the list item here has to be pre-constructed before the code, before execution enters here in the my list. And it may seem like a lot of boilerplate code in boilerplate in many use cases. So maybe we can make the body more flexible by declaring as a generic view and then construct the body with a view builder. Then this falls back to the problem that we had before, that now the user can choose to put anything in the body. They can actually put an image, or they can just put a button in the body, breaking the design contract. How do we find a balance then? I found result builder being handy in this case. That here's an example of a result builder, which is a list item builder. I put only 2 sample builder functions here. That's basically showing you some very basic result builder mapping. This one mapping a single list item into a list, and this one mapping a list of basically mapping a list of list item into a list. Of course, you can, if you are familiar with view builders, you can provide more builder methods here that allows you to conditionally construct your list item. It's pretty similar to how you use the if statement inside a view builder to construct your sweep UI view. With a result builder, our list template now looks like this. So now our list would only have the media view as a generic sweep UI view, where in the initializer we take the title string, we take the media as a view builder, and we take the list as a list item builder. The usage syntax will then look like this, that the user of the design system can create their own media view, just like how they do with Sweep UI. And they can also create their list item pretty similar to how we create Sweep UI view as well, with the exception that the user of our design system are restricted to be only creating list item in this result builder. And by doing so, we make sure that our design contract was met, that we provide we provide certain degree of flexibility for the user to construct the body list view, but not give them the total freedom to add a button inside. The next scenario, a new feature team needs a custom reusable component. How do we build it with our design system? When it comes to this, the first question we should ask is if this component should be in the design system or not. Is this component going to be widely used across the app, or is it just for a specific feature that and not going to be used anywhere else? Does this component conform to the design guidelines and practices in the design system? If after asking all these questions the answer was yes, then having a contribution model in place would actually help a lot for engineers outside of the design system squad to actually contribute components or code into the design system library. Chances are when a new component was built, it's going to be a beta component, which means the component looks right, so it has a right look of it, but it may not necessarily have passed accessibility review or more rigorous functional testing. Having a process in place and also guideline in place on what to expect when you are using a beta component and what needs to be done before we convert a beta component to a stable component. Having these guidelines in place for the design system will help a lot basically will help a lot in shorten the time frame for a piece of your component from design to into the code. Often, we as engineers need to find a balance between beauty and functionality. Take these native graphical styled SwiftUI date picker as example. This date picker component may not have the right color or font or the text size that's conforming to the design guideline. But if we want to build custom, this component is incredibly, at least for me, incredibly complex in terms of the interaction and particularly on voice-over support. Do we want to build it custom just so that it looks pretty? What about voice-over? Are we confident that we can get the implement voiceover to the same level that Apple supports, that Apple provides with the native components? What about dark mode support? And what about the ongoing maintenance when I suddenly lost my train of thought, but I guess you get what I mean. I'm gonna move on. Yes, iOS update. Thanks, Alex. Scenario, another one. We are upgrading our build tools to Xcode 16 and Swift 6. We test build our design system library with Xcode 16 and noticed a bunch of concurrency errors. This is just this is an unavoidable thing that we have to go through for every tooling update or dropping when we move up minimum supported OS. But our advice is that as a design system team, or actually any team working on your digital product, try to work as close to the platform team as possible if you have a platform team. So the platform team is basically the team that take care of setting up take care of your tooling, setting up the framework, setting up the foundational framework of your app and basically they know exactly what will happen when we upgrade our tools or when we drop the minimum supported OS version. So work closely with the platform team usually will give you more sufficient lead time to prepare for the upcoming upgrade, upcoming deprecation. Plan ahead. Let your product owner know that we will be, let product owner knows that we are going to focus for the next spring. We're going to focus on clearing all the Xcode errors for our tooling upgrade, and a sincere advice to move away from deprecated API as soon as possible. Using a deprecated API may seem okay. It is okay until it crashes, basically. And when it crashes, depends on severity. You can be pulled out from the bed and trying to push out a hot fix over the weekend. Continuous improvement. How do we know how well the design system is doing? If we don't, we need some kind of feedbacks. Basically, we can get the feedback from the users, engineers who's using the design system, and we can build up metrics. But by the way, the pie chart here is just an example. It does not resemble the actual percentage of adoption rate of combined design system. But you get the idea. Having a metrics in place basically helps us to understand the adoption rate. How much of our current digital products have adopted these new design system, and what are the mostly used components and patterns? Why are they most used? And is there an anti-pattern that's currently in the code? Metrics basically helps giving us a vision on these aspects. Lastly, a design system fails if it is not being used, or if it's not being used as it's intended. So listen to customer is pretty important. Customer in here for us are the engineers who are using the design system that we built. However, as important as listening to customers, it is equally important to make informed decisions. That is from the feedback. Some feedback may not work that well if we adopt it to our design system. So making our informed decisions, by consulting area of experts, around your team, would help a lot. So it was rather kind of example 4 and scenario 4, but I hope this kind of paints the picture of how it was like working on a design system, and the rocks you may hit. And lastly, a design system is meant to make our life easier. So my hope for your design system is that we hope the design system will make us better products, and moreover make our life happier. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Rick? Yep.
So if you notice there was a team that was continuously building custom views, is that a problem with product or a problem with you not supporting enough?
That's a great question. Ooh,
There is a right answer.
I confess that as engineers, I'm very often firstly feels guilty about we don't have the capacity, don't have enough capacity to support the team with reusable components, so resulting in them need to build custom. But in many cases, in many cases, when we had a closer look of the custom component, sometimes we ask ourselves why. Is it is it really that important to build this custom? Like, tensions between design and engineering sometimes emerge. The tension could be healthy, it could be unhealthy, but how we as engineers respond to the tension matters a lot. That if we that regardless of a perceived healthiness or unhealthiness, if we approach facing this tension with sort of relatively healthy attitude, we can usually find a common language that designers understand. And when you find that common language, you suddenly find that the designers are pretty reasonable people. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
You sort of touched on it, but there is, as you said, the designers like pixel perfect, etc., but there's also accessibility. So how do you manage or not manage the contracts about, say, for instance, the button that you go, great, but then the point size ends up being 40-point font is what's required, and so the button doesn't fit. So how do you manage your generic core product that's used by all the teams to go, well, the button is no longer a rounded lozenge, it's now, oh, we can't put these next to each other. How do you manage that within the design constraint of pixel perfect versus we need to support accessibility properly?
That's a very good question. Before I answer, I would like to highlight Alex, who's actually in the seat. Alex worked in design system with me, so I sort of have him show as a backup. So when I can't answer, I'll when I can't answer, I'll throw the ball to Alex. Yeah. So if I understand correctly, the question is about accessibility. Basically, the question is about accessibility support versus what designers want, which is like pretty beautiful UI. Frankly, that I find it true that we often need to remind designers the accessibility aspect of our UI. That they're probably already they're trained now, are probably already very good at sort of designing the right contrast for designing the right contrast for human eyes, but they may not have as much knowledge we have on voice over voice control or dynamic type, basically. We do run into pixel issues with dynamic type, and many times it was actually sort of a conversation with the designer telling them the engineering limitations, and basically elaborate engineering limitation to them why it is difficult to achieve your pixel perfect. And we found that designers are actually often quite understanding with this. I hope that answers your question. There's no one answer piece.
Hello, Rick.
Hey, Ali.
Question is 20% adoption rate. Are you happy with that? Are you doing anything to make adoption quicker, or are you just letting nature do its course? Or any challenges you found in making people adopt the new design system?
Legal disclaimer, stuff to do with
Thank you. Yes. the actual adoption rate of our design system is not 20%. It's not what you see on the screen, but it is. There's actually only so much that I can push for as engineering design system, because the main reason, say 80% of the apps still using the old design system is because they are legacy. And then organizations like to build out new things. They may not necessarily like to clean up old stuff. Tech debt, yes. Until the tech debt has been addressed, that adoption rate of the legacy part of the app is unlikely to have significantly improved.
Any more questions? No? All right, give a big hand to Rick. Thank you very much. And sadly, that also concludes CocoaHeads, or at least the formal arrangement of CocoaHeads for the year. Thank you very much for coming tonight. It's been 3 pretty great talks, in my opinion. Feel free to grab a little bite on the way out. I think that's going to be all that's left on the program. Thanks for coming. And for the stream, we'll see you back in February. For everyone else, hope to see you in December when we've got a little...
1 week earlier.
It is 1 week earlier. I don't think we've locked in a date per se, but it will be the second... We estimate the second Thursday of the month.
Yeah,
I think it's the 13th December or 12th? Yeah,
12th,
yeah.
yeah.
All right. Hope to see you then. In the meantime, have a good day and good night.